What does it feel like to work with you? Have you taken the time to say, how can I make it feel different to work with me? The framework I'm going to teach you will work for you. It will help you create superfans. This Supermodel Framework is something that you can use right now in your business. Today, we're going to be talking all about creating superfans. I'm from the entertainment industry. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the biggest stars on the planet, people like Katy Perry and Taylor Swift and Dolly Parton. And over the years, I've really studied the things that they've done to create their superfans and put it into a framework that I'm going to teach all of you today, because you all deserve superfans too. Now, I want to know, when your customers think about you, what do they think about? What does it feel like to work with you? What are they saying about you to their friends? Are they saying anything at all? The reason this is important is because we're living in an experience economy. It's no longer just about products and services. You're not in the selling homes business. You're in the experience business. And here's the thing, you've probably heard somebody say at some point along the lines that experience is everything, and it is. It's the #1 differentiator. It's the #1 thing that sets you apart from everyone else sitting in this room and everyone else in your market. But the flip side of that is true as well. Everything is experience. Every text message you send, every email, the way you answer your phone, when and how you show up for showings, all of it. It's all part of the experience, and it's all part of your brand. So today, we're going to be talking about how to get clear on that brand and then amplify it so that you're no longer a part of the consideration set. You're a category of one. You're that rock star, superstar realtor, or rock star, superstar team that everybody wants to work with, that your customers talk about and come back and tell their friends. Okay. So we're going to be using a software called Mentimeter today. I would invite all of you guys to take out your phones and take a picture of this QR code. You can also go to that website, menti.com, and enter the code, but it's a lot easier to just take a picture of the QR code. Now, this is going to let you guys follow along and see my slides on your phone. It's also going to let you answer some questions so that we can see your results in real time. Go ahead and press that heart when you guys get there just to let me know that you're in. All right, I see a lot of you. This is going to be fun. The first thing I want to know is, have you used Mentimeter before? Is this your first time? A couple people? Yeah? Let me know. Yes, no, maybe. You guys are in Vegas. You don't remember. Has anybody done anything really crazy in Vegas so far? Has anybody got married? No? I got married in Vegas. I eloped like 14 years ago, and it's worked out really well. So if anybody's like on the fence, like should I, shouldn't I would like to vote in the yes column of be crazy, marry someone you've known a few weeks. Maybe it'll turn into 14 years and 2 kids and counting. All right, we got a lot of first-time Mentimeters in the audience. That is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so you guys tell me, how long have you been in real estate? Are you relatively new? Are you experiencing some of these ups and downs in the market for the first time, or have you been doing this for a while? All right, we've got a pretty even mix. Isn't that a pretty pie chart? One of the reasons I love doing this is because it looks so nice when we see all of the colors. Now, whether you've been in real estate for 20 years or 20 days, I promise that the framework I'm going to teach you will work for you. It will help you create superfans. Now, here's the thing about superfans. They're customers who create more customers, as I said before. But you can't buy superfans. No one ever became a superfan of you because you bought the lead and put them in the right funnel. Those things are important, but the way people become superfans is because of the way it feels to work with you. And, you know, I know sometimes when I go to a conference like this, I get overwhelmed because there's so many things, so many great ideas that I want to implement, and I get a little lost of where to start and what to do. Does anyone else ever feel like that after an event like this? Like your brain is so full of ideas that you're like, if somebody asks me what I want for dinner when I get home, I'm going to like explode because there's just no more room in my brain. So I'm going to offer you guys a framework that you can use to help prioritize. But first, I want to know, what's a brand that you really love? What's a brand that you would consider yourself a super fan of? Because we all know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of an amazing customer experience. This could be a big brand. This Apple, that's a really big brand. This could be a small local brand. Who makes you feel valued? Like you're the only customer in the world that matters. Yes, so many great examples here. I see Tesla, I see Chick-fil-A, Louis Vuitton, Follow Up Boss. Yes, let's give it up for Follow Up Boss, you guys. Best CRM in the world, right? Yes, so many great brands. So we all know what it feels like to be on that receiving end. But have you ever taken the time to intentionally design the experience that your customers are on the receiving end of? From pre-purchase all the way to repurchase? Have you taken the time to say, how can I make it feel different to work with me? This Supermodel Framework is something that you can use right now in your business. And I call it the Supermodel because it's fun, right? Everybody wants to know a supermodel. And also because if you want to create superfans, being great is no longer good enough. You've got to be super. Super is start with your story. Understand your customer's story. Personalize, exceed expectations, and repeat. Now, I want to know, how many of you in the audience have an opinion about the website chewy.com? Could be good or bad. Maybe you've heard of them. Maybe you've never heard of them. Just curious if you have an opinion about Chewy. All right, it looks like 30 of you and counting have never heard of Chewy. About 70 of you have heard of it but have no opinion. 51 of you like Chewy. We've got 22 super fans and 3 that are not a fan of Chewy. I take a picture of those results. All right. So I'm going to tell you a story about Chewy.com that starts with my 2 rescue pups, Bandit and Bear. Anybody raise your hand if you have a rescue dog? Keep your hand up if the rescue place told you it was a border collie mix. When my husband and I moved from New York to Nashville, we had no idea about dogs, and we also had no idea that they would tell you it was like a lab mix or a border collie mix if you were getting a dog that perhaps was obviously not that. So the first dog that we got was Bear, the black puppy, and we were so excited with our little border collie mix, and all of our friends were like, you know that's a Rottweiler, right? And we were like, no, he's a border collie. We have paperwork and everything. And they were like, yeah, but you also have eyes, right? Like, that is definitely a Rottweiler. And it turns out one of the things that's pretty common with Rottweiler puppies is they have tummy issues. It's really hard to find a food that works for them because they've got very sensitive stomachs. We, of course, did not know this because we were feeding our dog border collie food. So after a few trips to the vet said, you know what? I think it's time to try a prescription dog food, which I had no idea was even a thing, right? I was like, only in America, there's prescription dog food. So I take my prescription, I go online, and I look for a place to buy this dog food. And I come across Chewy.com. And I think maybe seen a TV commercial or something. I had like a general idea of who they were, but I had never purchased anything from them. So I go online, I find this dog food. You see down in the corner, it says, we'll collect your pet and vet information to authorize this item before shipping. This item requires authorization. So this is a screenshot of the email that I sent right after I placed this order. Hello, below and attached, please find the prescription authorization for this order. Thanks, Brittany. It was to something like orders@chewy.com. It was a Saturday, so I figured maybe on Monday I'd get an automated email back. But instead, I got an email less than 10 minutes later. This is what the email said. Hi there, Brittany. Thanks so much for sending Bear's prescription directly. I've applied it to your order, and everything's set. Once it ships out, you'll get an email confirmation and a tracking number. If you need anything at all, give us a bark. We're here 24/7 to lend a helping paw. Ciao, ciao for now, Kelly. How cool is that, right? How much more did it cost to send that email than the email I expected to get? $0, right? And Kelly does a few really great things here to connect her story to mine. The first one is that she mentions Bear by name. I didn't mention Bear's name. She looked at the prescription and mentioned Bear's name because I'm not buying food for any dog. I'm buying food for my dog, one of the most important dogs on the planet, right? Your customers aren't looking for a home. They're looking for their home, for their family. It matters more than anything in the world to them. And they want a partner who knows that and shares that commitment, who shares that level of importance, that this is the most important thing in the world. The next thing Kelly does is set my expectations. There's nothing left for me to do. How often have you been in an exchange and you're like, wait, do I owe them something? Do they owe me something? Who's getting back with who? Absolutely no room for ambiguity here. She tells me everything's set. She throws down a couple of dog puns, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in. This is great. Now, I didn't need to write back to this email. She told me everything I needed to know, but it felt rude not to because it was such a personal seeming message. So I just shot back a quick note. Perfect. Thanks so much for the quick response, Kelly. I really appreciate it, and so does Bear. Have a great day, Brittany. Thinking that would be the end of it. But nope, Kelly wrote back again. She said, hi there, Brittany. Absolutely, it's our pleasure. We're so thankful every day for each and every wonderful member of our Chewy family, like you. Please tell Bear we said hello. And if you ever happen to snap a cute photo of him enjoying his Chewy goodies, feel free to send it our way. We all always love meeting our VIPs. Very important pause. You guys, 20 minutes ago, I'd never heard of this website. Now I'm part of a family? How cool is this? My dog is a VIP? Right? This is awesome. She doubles down on that 24/7 thing, saying, we're here to help 24/7, 365, rain or shine. If you ever need a helping paw or a listening ear, simply bark in our direction. We're always happy to hear from you. Over and snout, Kelly R. How great is that, right? Your words matter. The way you communicate with your prospects and your customers matter. It's how you stand out. It's how you go from a potential commodity provider in their mind to a category of one, the one that they want to work with regardless of anything else. Chewy sells dog food, right? If they can make pet food and pet medication and pet treats something that people want to buy from them, you can absolutely do it too with the power of your brand and your experience. Now, Chewy is known for their great CX. They send a lot of cards. They do a lot of surprise and delight. About 6 months after I placed the first order, I got a Chewy box, and I assumed it was something that I had auto-shipped because one of the things that they do is invite you to auto-ship your food and your prescriptions and your toys and all of those things. So a small box showed up one day. I thought maybe it was heartworm medicine, but I opened it, and it was these hand-painted portraits of Bandit and Bear. Right? That's exactly what I said when I opened the box. I was like, aw, how cool is this? Right? Now these hang up in my house, and every time someone comes over, they say, did you get pictures painted of your dogs? And I get to say, no, Chewy sent me those, and tell the story over again. Be so good that your customers can't help but talk about you. I have realtor friends who work with watercolor artists, some locally, some on Etsy, to paint portraits of the homes that their customers move into. I've known some who've painted watercolor portraits of the home that they left behind, especially if they have children and they're moving to a larger home. When you present someone with a watercolor of a home with their kids, does that gift get thrown away? Absolutely not. Do you need to write your name on it? Absolutely not. Be so good that your customers can't help but talk about you. Chewy customers talk all the time about Chewy. They go viral on a shockingly consistent basis on every single platform. LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all of them. And it's usually about an employee making a personal connection with a customer. Maybe it's when a pet was lost. Maybe it's during a difficult time. Maybe it's just for fun when somebody got their first kitten or their first bunny rabbit. I want to know from you now, what's your opinion about Chewy.com? Has it changed at all in the past 5 or so minutes? Or is it the same? Wow, we have a lot more Chewy Superfans than we did a few minutes ago. A few minutes ago, 23 of you told me you were a Chewy Superfan. Now we're at 125 and counting. 59 of you say you like Chewy. We had 42 people who had never heard of Chewy and 81 who had heard of Chewy but didn't have an opinion. Now, only 3 of you don't have an opinion. Interestingly, the 3 of you who did not like Chewy before still don't like Chewy. It's probably because of a personal experience you've had. But for the rest of you, assuming that none of you have placed an order and had a personal experience in the last 10 minutes, all that's changed is what? You heard a story. Yep, that's right. It wasn't even your story. It was a secondhand story from me, someone you barely know. That's the power of stories. They amplify connection. They accelerate the path to the connection. They're the most powerful tool in the world because we've evolved to know, trust stories. They're the most important thing, right? We trust them. We love them. We like to think we're rational people who think about facts. No, we love stories. And that's why the first step in my supermodel is to start with your story. And when I say start with your story, I don't mean lead with your story. I don't mean you should be like rolling down your window at stoplights saying, hey, let me tell you about my real estate business. Maybe that's a good acquisition model for you. Probably not. What I mean when I say start with your story is that you've got to understand what makes you the absolute best choice for your prospects and customers. Because if you don't know, how in the world are they ever going to figure it out? You can't compete on, I'm the closest, I'm the quickest, I'll make you a great deal. Those are table stakes. Everyone's expecting convenience. You've got to figure out what you are the best in the world at. And the answer is going to be different for everybody in this room. Some of you may be so on top of market data, it's ridiculous. Others of you may have a great eye for design. So you know you're going to help get top dollar for that listing because you're going to stage it beautifully, or you're going to help somebody design their new home. What is your superpower? What's your origin story? How did you get here? You could do anything. You could be anything in the world, and you decided to be in real estate, and you're right here, right now in Las Vegas, dedicating time to get better at your craft. Why? What events in your life led you to this moment? Start with your story. My realtor, Susie, who I love more than anything, I now refer to her as my fairy godmother. I met her at an open house with my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was looking for homes. My mother-in-law was sneezing. She was having trouble with the allergies. She was visiting Nashville from Detroit. And Susie said, oh, you know what? Try some local honey. It's really good for allergies. We met up with Susie the next day because Susie wanted to show my mother-in-law this senior living community. She brought her some local honey. 7 years later, my mother-in-law still talks about that local honey. Not only did we both buy homes with Susie, but I've referred probably close to a dozen friends. My mother-in-law has referred a couple of people. It all started with that jar of honey. The reason she is a realtor is because she felt like she was not given attention when she bought her first home, and she felt like it was because she only had a couple $100,000 to spend. A friend had referred her to an agent. The friend had spent like $1 million on a home, and she felt like she wasn't given the same attention because her budget was so much smaller. And she said, you know what? I'm going to become an agent, and I'm going to treat everyone like they're buying a multi-million-dollar home. And she did. And now she's one of the top agents in the state of Tennessee. Superfans are created at the intersection of your story and every customer's story. I want to ask you guys a question. This is a paint store in my town. Ironic, right? They have one job, to sell paint. Look at the building. Look at the sign. Does it look like a paint store? I lost an argument with my husband. I thought for sure this store was closed. I was like, babe, they never reopened after COVID. And he was like, Brittany, they did. I drive by it every day. But I want to know, would you trust this store to sell you paint? Do you think the people working there are the authority on great paint? They're going to be able to help you if you have a question about, oh, I don't know, making the outside of your house look nice? Some of you are like, yeah, we're in Vegas. I'll gamble. The rest of you are on my side. Probably not. Everything is your story. Everything is experience. Even the things that aren't words communicate something very important about your brand. All right, the second part of the supermodel is you. Understand your customer's story. I want to know from you guys, what do you think is more important, empathy or authority? Do you think your customers want to work with someone who understands them or who is an expert in the market? Almost all of you say empathy. Yes, I would agree. This is a bit of a trick question. They are both important, but I would argue empathy must come first. Somebody else who would argue that is Teddy Roosevelt. This is my very favorite quote of Teddy's. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Show of hands if you're the one who pays the bills in your house. Maybe not making the money, but the actual act of paying the bills. A bunch of you? Yeah, me too. The reason is because my husband has lost his privileges. About probably 3 months after we got married, we were moving from our tiny apartment on the Upper East Side to like a slightly less tiny apartment on the Upper East Side, and we were so bummed because the building didn't have Verizon Fios, and we were like, oh, we're going to have Time Warner Cable. So it was something like a week before we moved in, before Time Warner could come and set it up. We flipped a coin to see who was going to stay home that day. He lost, so he stayed at home to wait for the Time Warner guy because it was like a 12-hour arrival window or something. I got home from work that night, the internet worked, and I was like, great. Didn't think anything else of it. Until about a week later. when the internet stopped working. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I unplugged the modem and the router. I pushed some buttons. Nothing worked. And I was like, ugh, I'm going to have to call customer service, which I dreaded. I called the phone number. I hear something like, your wait time is approximately 56 minutes. When the guy finally picks up the phone, I said, hey, I just got my service a few days ago. Now the internet's not working. I don't know what's wrong. And he said, OK, I need your username. And I said, no, I don't think we have one. We just got our service. We haven't paid a bill yet. And he said, oh, you definitely have a username. You would have had to set it up while the technicians were there. So I go in the other room and say, hey, babe, do we have a username? He says, oh, yeah, it's Time Warner Sucks. So I get to relay this to the gentleman on the phone, who's the only person in the world standing between us having working TV and internet or not. And he's silent. And I thought he hung up on me, but he didn't. And he said, OK, what's your password? So I look at my husband. And so this is where the story differs. I remember the password as really sucks, exclamation point, with a capital S. But when my husband read this story in my book that's coming out in January, he said, no, babe, it was really, really sucks, exclamation point. And I remember specifically because I tried to make it really, 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 and that was too many reallys. So it was really, really sucks, exclamation point. Either way, I get to say this to the guy on the phone. And he was quiet for a second. And he said, wow, you said you just got your service hooked up a few days ago? And I was like, yeah, at the beginning of the week. And he said, I'm so surprised that username was still available. I would have thought for sure it was taken by now. Isn't that great? Totally turned that situation around. You guys deal with people when they're not at their best, right? Is that safe to say? You guys are dealing with people when perhaps they're not at their best. So having a little bit more empathy goes a really, really long way. And that empathy also allows you to connect your story to theirs in interesting ways because you're paying attention. And that's the third model of, or the third pillar of the supermodel, P, personalize. Now I want to know, are any of you guys familiar with a rule called the platinum rule? We all grew up with the golden rule, right? Which is treat others the way you want to be treated, right? Great rule, no shade to the platinum rule, it's straight out of the New Testament, or to the golden rule, I mean. The platinum rule takes it a step further. The platinum rule says, don't treat others the way you want to be treated, because not everybody wants to be treated the same way as you. We don't all have the same preferences, the same backgrounds, the same beliefs. So treat others the way they want to be treated. What do they want? To the extent that you can customize things that may seem simple, like when and how you reach out, it makes a big difference. And this is where automation is so important. I am a firm believer that automation is not going to replace most of us in the next few decades, but those of us who embrace automation are going to replace those who do not. And that's why using Follow-Up Boss to its full extent is so important. It gives you such a huge competitive advantage. It's like multiplying your brain. Things that you don't have to think about, things that you don't have to remember, so that you can focus more of your time on those things that you can't yet automate, those human touches, those personal moments that matter. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys have personal things that you do for closing gifts or gifts throughout the process. One of my favorites is from a friend of mine who loves to do puzzles. And he loves to be able to say he was a part of the home ownership puzzle. So he uses the Walgreens app on his phone to make custom puzzles of the listing photos for every closing. How fun is this, right? It cost him $20. He used to make some horrible gift with his name on it or his logo on it or something. As a side note, if something has your logo on it, it's not a gift, it's an ad. Please don't put your names on things, right? You would never give your friend a pair of shoes and put your name on it. Do something that makes people remember because of how special it is. I love Legos. Did you know you can go on Etsy and have somebody make a Lego model of a house for like 20 bucks? You can also make your own custom Legos. You can go to lego.com and put anybody's name, any message on a minifigure that you customize to look any way you want. How many of your buyers have kids? How many of the clients that you meet at open houses have kids? You can give them Lego sets to build their own dream house while they're doing the boring work of going with their parents to open house after open house. Little things that make a big difference. Little things that exceed expectations. That's our fourth pillar. Now, I'm a firm believer that there's only 3 kinds of interactions in this world. Every experience you have, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many, will end with you feeling one of exactly 3 ways: better, worse, or exactly the same. I call these outcomes net negatives, net neutrals, and net positives. To the extent that you can turn net negatives into net neutrals and net neutrals into net positives, you will create superfans. We all have those friends that we don't want to pick up the phone when we see their name on the phone because we know it's going to like drain our energy, right? Like they only call when they need a favor or they're asking for something. We also have those friends, when we see their name come up, we light up because we know it's going to be a great conversation. You are in control of the way you make your customers feel. Make those conversations and those interactions net positives. Will you be able to make everything a net positive? No. If you're calling to tell somebody that their 17th offer has been rejected, what can you do to make it neutral instead of negative? How can you dull the pain just a little bit, right? How can you end that interaction on a positive or at least better than negative note? Has anybody here been to Legoland in Florida? A few of you? Have you stayed at the hotel? It's so fun, right? This is a picture from the Legoland Hotel a couple months ago. This is my oldest son, Kato, and he loved the hotel. He loved the park, but he really, really loved this elevator. Now, every time the elevator doors closed, it was a disco dance party. ABBA was playing, the Bee Gees were playing, there was a disco light or a disco ball, flashing lights, these big murals on the wall. Loved it. My kids both were like, when can we get in the elevator again? We were there 4 days before I realized this was the slowest elevator I had ever been on in my life. 2 verses of Dancing Queen would play between the lobby and the 5th floor. But I didn't notice for 4 days. The elevator was slow. I don't know why they couldn't make it go faster. The elevator was small. I don't know why they didn't make it bigger. They turned it into an experience. They turned it into something my kids not just didn't complain about, but looked forward to and still talk about. There are slow elevators in your business right now. Some of them may seem beyond your control, but with a little bit of creativity, you can turn some of those slow elevators into disco dance parties, right? It just takes a little bit of creativity. It just takes exceeding your customers' expectations, looking at things through their eyes. And I'd like to tell you that customer experience is set it and forget it, that there are a few settings that you can turn on and follow up boss and say, I did it, guys. Came home from Vegas. It's done. I've got super fans. But you all know nothing is this easy, right? Just like getting in shape, just like eating well, creating superfans is something you've got to focus on every day to see the results. And that's why the final pillar of the supermodel is R, repeat. I love this quote from Elizabeth Arden. Repetition makes reputation, and reputation makes customers. Your reputation is so important because here's the thing. You're losing prospects all the time that you never know about. Because somebody mentions your name, someone searches for you, and they're like, meh, and they move on. The biggest threat to your business is not awareness, it's apathy. It's not people who don't know about you. It's people who know about you but don't care, because you haven't given them a reason to. You've got to give them a reason to care. And when you have amazing experiences with your customers, you've got to get those reviews and referrals. Renee just talked to you guys about this. I know you've heard a lot about it today. I want to know, do you have a system in place right now for asking for referrals? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you don't use it. They're so important, and it's so easy, right? You could say something like, you know, if you were a keynote speaker, maybe you would say, you know what, almost all of the gigs I get are referral gigs, and I have loved being here with you. If you enjoyed this as much as I did, I would love for you to tell any friends that you have that they should consider me for their event. And I would love for you to maybe go online and say something nice about me. See how easy that was? By the way, that was not hypothetical. Please, by all means, if you've enjoyed this, right? See, thank you. That's how easy it is to ask for a referral, but you've got to tell people why it matters. Because if someone has never worked in sales before, if they've never had a commission job, they have no idea, right? They have no idea how important those are, so you've got to tell them. Don't have to ask them 6 or 7 or 8 times before they do it. Tell them why it's important and why it means something to you, and I bet they'll do it quickly. So this is the Supermodel, S-U-P-E-R. If you guys want to hear more about the Supermodel, you're in luck, because I wrote an entire book about it. That book is called Creating Superfans. It's in stores in January. Thank you for taking a picture. I appreciate that. It's in stores in January. You can pre-order it now. And if you want to read the first 2 chapters right now, just give me your name and your email address in the Mentimeter form right now, and I'll send you the first couple of chapters tomorrow. I hope you really enjoy this book. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. But most importantly, I hope you walk away knowing this one thing. When you say you're great, oh, I don't know why the slide's not coming up, but take my word for it. When you say you're great, that's marketing. When your customers tell other people you're great, that's magic. Be so good that people can't help but talk about you, and I promise you will never have a referral problem ever again. Thank you, guys.